Okay, today our learning goal is I can order a set of real numbers from least to greatest and greatest to least. You will also learn how to put in a square root sign in your calculator so I can approximate values for numbers such as pi and the square root of 50 and place them on a number line. Okay, and those are our two learning goals today. I have told you in the past that there are many things that I will not make you show your work on, but there are a few things that I will make you do a certain way or expect you to do a certain way. When I expect you to do something a certain way, I need you to make sure you follow what I say. This is because in many years I have found that this is one of the things that students don't take the time to do correctly, and then they make mistakes. And mistakes, just we can't afford to make them, okay? So here's one of those things. First, we're going to define a couple of terms. The first term I want to define is ascending. Ascending order is an order that we need to understand what it means. Okay? Ascending order means least to greatest. The opposite of ascending, say this, when you're going to heaven, you ascend to heaven. So you go from here and you go up. All right, descending order is the opposite. And descending means greatest to least. So you either ascend to heaven or you descend to that other place that's really warm. Okay? The other thing that we need to understand, and I'm going to draw a quick number line because sometimes that helps us, okay? And here is a 0, and that is essentially in the middle. Everything to the right is positive. Everything to the left is negative. And a lot of you right now is saying, well, I know that. Well, we still make mistakes with it, okay? And I like to say, the further left you are, the less the value. So left is less. Because just because it's a negative number, let's say this, negative 25 has less value than negative 1. And it's opposite to what we've always been taught up until 6th grade, because we only knew about positives. And of course 25 is greater than 1 in positive land, but in negative land, negative 1 would be here on the number line and negative 25 would be over here. So the further left you are on a number line, the less the value, okay? So we're going to look at number 1. It says write the numbers in descending, which is greatest to least, descending, greatest to least order. This is what I'm going to require. You're going to do this on notebook paper, and we are going to put number 1, use each line, okay? These are your options. I do have some graphic organizers that are available that I will give you out, and you may use those as boxes to keep things lined up, or you can do it this way. So I'm going to put them in the same order they are there. 0, negative, square root of 2, square root of 5, and 13 over 4. Okay? Next, what I'm going to do is come over here and I'm going to put my decimal point, my decimal point, my decimal point, and my decimal point. Also, this is greatest to least, so I should have done this. I should have put G2L, meaning greatest to least. Then I'm going to use my calculator, and I'm going to keep my decimals straight. Now, some of you don't understand still that a whole number has the decimal point after the number. But we need to learn that, okay? And so just because your calculator doesn't show it, if it doesn't show your decimal point, that's always going to mean that it's after the number. So we are going to fill in, and we are going to put 0. The other thing I want you to do is as soon as you see a negative sign, we're going to put that negative sign there, okay? So then we're going to put in square root of 2. Now, how you do that, I have a negative sign right here. Okay, this is your negative sign. I'm sorry, can't quite see it, okay? And then you put in the second key, and right here on top of x squared, because to undo a squaring of something, it's the square root, and it's there in blue. And I'm hoping that you can see it. If you can't see it on mine, you can see it on yours. Put your square root symbol. Then I'm going to hit 2. And if you notice, my arrow is underneath the radical sign. So I am going to hit arrow out, so I get out from underneath the radical sign, and I'm going to hit enter. Okay? Now, for 8th grade math, I would say going out to the 3rd place is more than enough, all right, when you are ordering and comparing. So we are going to write that number, -1, 4, 1, 4, okay? And that, I'm just going to stop at that point. Next again, second, x squared, 5, get out from underneath the radical sign and hit enter. And we have 2.236, and that's what I'm going to write on my paper. 2.236. Now you see how I'm keeping all my numbers lined up. If you used the boxes, they would automatically be lined up, okay? Then we have 13 over 4, which we need to turn into a decimal, which is 13 divided by, I'm sorry, I'm not showing you, divided by 4, and I'm going to hit enter, and that's 3.25. Now, another misconception that students have is that because it's longer, it's bigger. But what we do to train our brain to not think that way is, I don't have anything here, so I'm going to fill in my zeros. I have nothing here, so I'm going to fill in my 0. I have nothing here, so I'm going to fill in my zeros. Now they're all the same length. Now I can decide which one is greatest, because remember, we're going greatest to least. So the greatest value, and you can use a piece of paper, you can use a card, you can use your hand, but the first place you look is where the whole numbers are. So the greatest one here is 3. So that has to be first. Okay? So that's number 1. All right? So I'm going to cross it off because I've used it. Here, then I'm still looking. I have a 2. And this one is pretty easy to do. So that's the next greatest, and I'm going to cross it off. Now, if you forgot to put that negative sign, you would think 1 is greater. But remember, -1 is to the left of the 0. So we have 0 is further right than -1, so therefore 0 is greater, and then this would make this number 4. And the reason that I number them in this order is because then I need to come over to my paper and I'm going to write them in that order. So number 1 was 13 over 4. Number 2 was the square root of 5. Number 3 was 0. And number 4 was -1. I'm sorry. This negative the square root of 2. Because you need to list them in this. This is what was on your paper. Okay? Now, some of you need to learn to work smart. If you only have one negative number, of course it's going to be the least value. Okay? But then maybe you look at the other 3 and you do those to determine the order that they would come in. Let's go to number 2. I'm not going to take quite as long explaining all that when I get to number 2. So number 2, I'm going to write my numbers in order. So I have, we're still doing, and maybe I'm just going to leave a little more space, and I'm going to write greatest to least so I don't forget. Okay? Number 2. I have 3. I have the square root of 10. I have 3/4, and I have negative 1.5. Okay, greatest to least. I'm going to come out here. I'm going to put dot, 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 dot. Then I'm going to, now we're all changing them. You always compare decimals. Never, ever, ever compare anything other than decimals. Okay, so I already have a decimal here, so I know I don't need to put in the calculator, so I'm going to just bring it over here. I have 1.5. Okay, and then I have the number 3. Well, that is a whole number, so I know that's 3 right there. Okay, with the decimal point after. Square root of 10, remember, it's second. Sorry, I'm going to move this over just a little bit. It's second square root 10 and hit enter. Okay, I get 3.162. Okay, so this is 3.162. 3/4. Here we go. I need to change it to a decimal. 3 divided by 4, hit enter, and I get 0.75. 0.75. Hopefully that's what you got. So now I write that in. My decimal is before it. And if you notice, everything's lined up. I'm going to fill in my zeros. I have a 0 here. This is my first digit. I have a 0 here. I have a 0 here. I have a 0 here. I have a 0, and a 0. Okay? So now that I have filled in all my decimals, I can decide greatest. I've got that G there to remind me, greatest. Well, when I'm looking at my whole numbers, I have 2 that are 3. So then I go to my tenths place, and 1 is bigger than 0, isn't it? Because all I'm concentrating is on those first 2. So this is number 1. It is greatest. Cross it out. What's number 2? Well, this one, obviously, because it's the 3. Now, this is where you're going to get messed up. 0 or negative 1. Remember, negative is always going to be further left. Left is less. So this is 3, and this would be 4. Then I'm going to come to my paper over here, and I'm going to list them as they were written on the paper. So I'm going to list them as, number 1 was the square root of 10. So I am going to come over here and put square root of 10. And then next, number 2 was 3. Next, number 3 was 3/4. And there again, the last one was a negative, but I only had one negative sign. That's not going to be how it is all the time, okay? All right, number 3. So we're still doing greatest to least, greatest to least. Number 3, I have 4 numbers. We're starting out easy, but look at 2 of them are negative this time. So I have a 2, I have negative 3/7, I have 0.75, and I have negative 3/2. So I'm going to come over here, I'm going to put decimal point, decimal point, decimal point, make sure they're all lined up. 2 is a whole number, so I can put my 2 there. This is a decimal already, so I can do 0.75. So I only have 2 that I have to convert. I'm going to put my negative sign and my negative sign so I don't forget. And then I'm going to come over here and I am going to do negative, which is this key down here, remember, 3 divided by 7, and I'm going to hit enter, and I get negative 0.428. 428. Then here I'm going to do negative 3 divided by 2, and I am going to write negative 1.5. Come back, fill in all my zeros so that I have the same number of digits out in for each one. Now I need to go to my ones place and say which is the biggest, because I'm doing greatest to least. Obviously the 2 is, So that is number 1. I'm going to cross it off. I've used it. What is the next biggest? Well, let's see. I have a negative sign out here, so that's obviously, these two are the same, they're 0, but I have a -4 and a +7. So I'm going to make this number 2. And then what is the largest? -4 or -1? What is the greatest value? Instead of saying the largest to yourself, say greatest value. And when I come back up to my number line, okay, if I have a -0.4, let's say I put a 1 here, -1. -0.4 is going to be here, -0.4. And -1.5 would be over here, -1.5. So which one has a greater value? It's going to be the one that is closer to 0. All right, the left is less. So I've got -0.4. So this is number 3, and this is number 4. Then I'm going to come over here and I'm going to write them down. And I am going to say number 1. Sorry, you can't see it. Number 1 is the 2. Number 2 is the 0.75. Number 3 is -3/7. And number 4 is -3/2. All right. This time we are getting a list. So there's another strategy you can use for this, okay? Which list shows the numbers in ascending order. Now, ascending order is what? I hope you said least. Ooh, look at that. That's terrible. Can't even spell today. Least to greatest. Okay? So I'm doing L to G, essentially. Now, I look at my numbers. This is a strategy I would use if I were you. Okay? I look at my numbers and I say, okay, least to greatest. I have negatives and I have positives. So I am going to even come right down here and I am going to draw myself my number line. Here's 0. Here's -1, here's -2, here's 1, here's 2. It's probably enough to get us through this one, okay? So least is going to be this way, correct? I know that it has to start with a negative number, so I can wipe out D already, okay? So least means my first number has to be the smallest number. Well, I have 2 with -0.5. which if I put them on the number line, -0.5 would be here, okay? Then I have 1 with a -2, which is right here. So which is least, -0.5 or -2? Well, obviously I said the further left you are, the least the value. There's my answer, and I'm done, okay? Now, I didn't have to work them all out, did I? Sometimes you're going to have to work out the first couple, or you can look at this and say, okay, those are the same, then I would go here. And then you have a negative. So there's many, many strategies that I will help you learn as we go along. Okay, let's flip the page. We're almost done. Graph each real number on the number line. Okay, I've got this number line, and it looks like there's hardly any numbers on it. Okay, so here is 0. What is halfway between 0 and 1? Hopefully, you know it is 0.5. Okay, so this tells me that my number line is going by 0.5. So this is 1.5, here's 2, here's 2.5. Going the opposite direction, it's -0.5, -1.5, -2, -2.5. Okay? Now, I need these numbers. I can go ahead and put the decimals on. So do I have anything in decimal or whole number form? Well, I have this one, -1.75. Well, that's not quite negative 2. So I'm going to place that. It's on the way to here. So I'm going to put this, and I'm going to say negative 1.75, and I'm going to cross it off, okay? Because I've done that. I've got a negative 2, so I can put that on here. Right here is negative 2, and I can cross that off. The rest of them I might have to do some math for. Now, I'm going to write 100%. I'm going to write negative 3/4. I'm going to write 25%. I'm going to write the square root of 4. I'm going to write 9/4, and I'm going to write the square root of 3. Okay? Since we're not really ordering and comparing, I'm not really concerned about writing it over here. I just want to put them on the number line. So what I want to do is, what is 100% as decimal? Well, if you remember correctly, you get rid of the decimal sign according to your orange chart, and you do 100 divided by what? 100. And that changes it from a percent to a decimal, so that's actually equal to 1. Well, can I put that on the number line? Yes. Here is 100%. Okay? Second one, negative 3/4. So negative 3 divided by 4, change it to a decimal because you cannot, is negative 0.75. So negative 0.75, so that means I'm bigger than negative 0.5, at least I'm on my way from negative 0.5 to negative 1. So I'm going to come over here and write negative 3/4. Okay, got that one on there, cross it off. 25%, remember, change a percent to a decimal, put your number in, divide by 100, and I get 0.25. So 0.25, that's less than 0.5, it's positive, so, but it's not 0, so I'm going to go here, and I'm going to put in 25%. Okay? Remember, you're putting the numbers that are listed, not their decimal form, on the number line, okay? Square root of 4, remember how to do that? I hope so. Second, and then the x squared button that has the square root symbol on top of it. Uh-oh, see, I hit that wrong. So I'm going to hit clear. Second, square root. I hit two things with my pencil at the same time. And then we're going to put 4 in there. I'm going to get out from underneath the radical and hit enter. And that equals 2. Well, that makes sense. 2 squared is 4. When you undo a square, the square root of 4 is 2. So I can come to 2, and I can put square root of 4. 9/4. 9 divided by 4. Hit enter. And I get 2.25. So that's on from 2 on the way to 2.5, but not quite there yet. So that's 9/4. And the last one is second square root 3. And I get 1.73. So that's larger than 1.5, but less than 2. So I'm going to place that, and that was the square root of 3 right here. Okay? And that is the end of your notes. You need to go back to my desk area and pick up your practice. And have a great day. You'll be working on your practice today. You'll be able to finish it tomorrow, and then you will have a second practice tomorrow to work on, okay? But you will have time in class to finish it.